Welcome once again. If you're just joining us, this is Bottomline Africa, right here on KTN News. Now, Africa's entertainment and media sector, especially, is said to be experiencing an exponential growth, especially in Nigeria, Kenya, as well as South Africa. Now, over the last 2 decades, artists have risen from relative international obscurity to global recognition. Sector encompasses books, movies, internet, newspapers, radio, TV, and video games. Now, in these 3 countries, is projected growth at a faster rate than that of the world's average. Now, according to a 2015 PricewaterhouseCoopers report, the rapid growth of the African music industry can be attributed to 3 factors: demographics, internet penetration, and streaming. Now, the music industry largely contributes to the growth of the entertainment and media sector. In Nigeria, for instance, music is the fastest growing E&M sector behind the internet. Now, to take me through that topic of discussion tonight, which has everything to do with the entertainment sector in Africa, once again, I have my guest here in studio with me, composed of Ken Woundo, who is from the Churchill Laugh industry, Dan Asedo, who is a musician, as well as Marek Fuchs, who is the MD of Salty Soul Entertainment. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Yeah.
Now, Marek, let me start with you. And I have some interesting figures here from both South Africa and Nigeria from what I've mentioned just a few minutes ago. And if you look at South Africa, the total music revenue is projected to grow at an annual growth rate of 4.4%. Translate that into cash, it's about $178 million. Now, Nigeria also remains one of the world's fastest growing entertainment markets with overall growth of about $4 billion. Now, with the economic situation in Africa, which is not doing very well, and of course the world, it seems you people in the music and entertainment industry are smiling all the way to the bank. Is that the case?
Well, it might be the case, and it's slowly becoming the case. But there's still many steps to get to the bank, to tell you the truth. But definitely the growth is there, and the numbers speak for themselves.
Ken, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, it's true what Marek is saying. There's definitely there's growth.
Yes.
The steps, guys are still taking the steps towards the bank. We haven't reached the levels of the other industry players, but we are getting there. And the recognition too, we like it as well. Yeah.
Now,
slowly becoming a small influence. Yeah.
Dan, from the figures I've just indicated, it seems the next career for everyone should be music.
Definitely. I think the only thing that's important to say is that they're measuring growth, not necessarily absolute value. So if you measure the absolute value of the industry, you might be a little bit behind the rest of the world. But the growth is, I think the numbers are probably true.
Now, Marek, from that figures that I've just indicated, what can you attribute the growth of the music industry, for instance, because that's where you work in. What can you attribute the growth to in Africa?
I believe one of the main factors in this growth is obviously the new media and the spreading of social media from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. So obviously this is one of the main driving forces behind this growth.
Now, Dan Aseda, you are a musician, and clearly the figures there look very much pretty. So what can you attribute these to? Because it seems the African music industry and the entertainment industry at large is growing at a very fast rate.
I think I would echo what Marek has said. The only thing I can add is mobile. The way that we are delivering content now to the market in Africa is heavily influenced by mobile phone. And so this has basically changed the way that the product is delivered and the way that people pay for it. So the traditional, CD or tape or even old vinyl discs are gone. In Africa, it was difficult to deliver these anyways because of poor infrastructure. But now with mobile, everything's changed. You can get the music to somebody in 30 seconds.
Now, Ken, you come from, of course, the laugh industry. This is an industry that people didn't know about it a few years back. Yeah. And do you think it's well-paying as well, like music?
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. Just to add on something that from the previous question that you asked from, what Dan and Marek have said. Yes. I would attribute probably the growth to easy entry levels. Music and, entertainment industry rather, especially in Kenya, we do not require so much of formalities to make a hit today or to become a comedian tomorrow. It's not as formal as becoming an MD So the entry levels are relatively easy, and the young guys who have creative minds, and they're finding that freedom, and they're exploiting it, and hence the sustained growth. Because each and every day people wake up and become creative, and they say, wow, I want to be a musician. Tomorrow I want to be a comedian. I want to be, and and there's not so much restriction other than just acceptance from the society. And the fact that we are also grown in terms of audience, how we perceive either music or comedy, or either through our phones, TV, radio, etc. I think all those ganged up together, then they make it relatively a very strong growing sector.
Yeah. And Marek, from the statistics there, it seems the biggest consumers of this, entertainment, music included, are the young people. And if you look at Africa as a continent, it's projected by the year maybe 2050, we'll have more than 1 billion youths. So how does the future of entertainment look like to you?
I mean, it seems absolutely bright. I just want to shadow exactly what Kennedy and Dan said as well. Obviously, mobile penetration, technologies is going to be supporting this growth as well. Young people like to enjoy music, young people like to be entertained, and this is exactly why we're doing what we do. And based on this, I can imagine the future can be very bright.
Now, Ken, Marek says the future looks very bright. You come from an industry that has had a lot of, young people who've come in as comedians. Do you think there's need to have, such kind of institutions that can nurture talent at a very young age?
Yes, I think it is actually that time, because we are seeing an influx of as many entertainers as possible. The only challenge we have, probably where we are lagging behind in countries like South Africa or Nigeria, is what we are saying, making it as formal as possible. Because I think some of them would want or have the perception that they're just passing through. I mean, I want to be an architect, but before I become an architect, let me become a musician or a comedian. Then along the way, I become an architect. Yeah, so there is actually the need to, make them believe and, remain, like say, you're a musician now, you're a musician forever. You're a comedian now, you're a comedian forever. And there are set examples
So there's need for this young talent to take the talent seriously. Now, Dan Aseda, you are a musician, and Ken has talked about Nigeria. This is a country that has beaten Kenya squarely, let me just say, in music. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, it depends what you measure. When you look at it, one, they have got a bigger population to sell to. So, that's 170 million or somewhere there. We have only 45 million if you're looking at the market size. So if you're going to sell to 16 to 24 of both of these sample sizes, then obviously the numbers are going to be different. But if you're measuring something else, for instance, the quality of music or the music that's been placed in movies, for Hollywood, and find that Kenya has maybe a few more works that are in that sector. Also looking at music, for instance, that's for corporate music that's being not only synced to movies but also synced to other stuff, like presentations, etc. You find that the Kenya presence in the market is a lot larger in that case because we have a bigger production base than Nigeria has. Considering all these things, I would also like to just say that one of the challenges, as Ken has rightly pointed out, is the professionalization of the art form. It may not necessarily mean that people stay in one art form or not go across or don't go to something else. It just means that while you're working on something, you have a clear business sense behind it and you have a clear business case for it in order to make sure that you are not only making good content, but you're making money.
Yeah. Now, Marek, do you agree with Dan that Kenyan musicians have to take their tool of trade, which is music, more seriously in order to compete with the likes of Nigeria?
I believe so. But at the end of the day, I know the musicians and the people that I work with, they are professionals. They strive towards professionalism. I think the issue over here that I see is the most important issue that's stopping Kenyan music from really going over the borders and going international. The main issue is that we don't seem to be incorporating traditional Kenyan sounds and looking at our own culture and history and bringing that into popular culture. You can see that very clearly how Nigerians are successful at this, wearing their boo-boos in their traditional music, playing their traditional instruments as part of their music as well in popular music. And this is where they're really succeeding because that brings the authenticity to their music. You see that a lot in South Africa as well, in Ghana. For some reason, in Kenya, we're starting to look a little bit more outside for inspiration instead of looking within. And this is one of the things we've been focusing with Sauti Sol, and our upcoming projects are going to be primarily about looking within, because I believe that that is where you can find the best inspiration and you can really execute that music to international levels, because it's going to be unique because of that.
Yes. Now, Marek, before I go to Dan, I'm still on your case now. We know about Sauti Sol, we know about the likes of Calligraph Jones, you know, Red Sun. But the people who are raising questions, they're saying we're not seeing a situation where there is some new crop of talent coming out of Kenya. Does it mean that the ones who are in control of the market are not inspiring new talents?
I don't believe so. I really want to go back to what I just mentioned earlier. I see that as the biggest issue. Next to that, I would imagine that one of the other supporting factors to this is that there's not enough institutions, programs, and additionally government support to develop the music industry, the music business, and the entertainment industry as a whole. The professionalism from that perspective is missing.
Now, Dan, do you get enough support from the government?
I don't necessarily think that businesses should always get support from the government in the sense that in the way that we are currently discussing it. So I think that the kind of support we're getting from government is the wrong kind of support. That's my honest, unbiased opinion. Because I think that any business industry works in the context of good governance. So if you've got good security, people feel safe, they can go to gigs. That does not necessarily mean that the government needs to give musicians grants. It's okay if the government is willing to give people grants, but ultimately for the better part of the industry, we're interested in a proper, logical, understandable tax regime that we can subscribe to and we can pay. We're interested in a business context that allows us to protect our intellectual property. We're interested in a real life context that allows consumers of our music to be able to feel safe and come and see us performing. These are the things that are important. Traditionally, what has happened for us is that we've gotten people to sort of sign grants, give people loans, which is fine, but is not necessarily helping us deal with the fundamental issues.
And now, Dan, there's this age-old campaign by Kenyan musicians. They've been having this kind of campaigns, for increased consumption of local music. They've been calling on local radio stations to play, local kind of music. Has that kind of campaign been successful so far?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that all these markets that we're discussing, South Africa right now has a local content quota of 60%, I believe. Nigeria is 90%. So when we're looking at direct competition between Kenya and these two countries, Nigerians have a 90% local content quota that's very aggressively enforced. The Kenyan quota on paper is 40%, right? But nobody's achieving 40%. By my studies that I've done over the past 2 years, it's probably closer to 8%. So in a context like that, the reason that Marek is talking about external influence is that eventually what you're hearing on radio is what young people are going to be making. So if all we're hearing is music from a certain part of the world, then people calculate this to be what is successful, and so they make it. It's not necessarily a bad thing in my view. You play in the market that accepts you, but there is sort of when you go to a market that doesn't know you and you don't have enough roots in it, you have a harder time breaking in.
Yeah, and of course the entertainment industry is big. Apart from music, there's also comedy. Now, Ken, this is where I want to bring you in. It seems the comedy industry, or we call it the laugh industry, in Kenya is doing much better than music. What is the secret?
The secret, and I wanted to chip in earlier on, but allow me to chip in right now. The secret is in competition. When locally you have competition, it somehow creates people become creative. I mean, we're in the creative industry, they have to be creative. If Sauti Sol had 4 Sauti Sols, trust me, in Madagascar, people would be singing to Sauti Sol songs. They're arguably the best, in the country, in Africa, But probably somewhere in Madagascar, somebody doesn't know them the way they would know a Nigerian musician. So the Nigerian musicians have internal competition that makes them really struggle to find audiences outside their own country. And that way, they reach out to Africa, either in film. That's why you see a lot of Nigerian soap operas all over in Africa TVs. You see a lot of Nigerian music penetrating. The only thing they haven't managed to penetrate.
So, Ken, are you saying Kenyan musicians are short of creativity?
No, they are short of competition.
Yes.
If they have meaningful competition, you know, they would be very creative and they would go out. I want to put a case in point with comedy. Right now, the comedy industry has grown into such levels that there is a lot of competition. Somebody might look at that competition as, something negative. There was a time, I think, Calligraph was trying to do something with Octopizzo, blah, blah, blah. But somehow, guys started looking at it from a negative point of view. But people, the players who in the industry like us, were saying, fine, that is good. That way, you create competition. The local audiences, you feel like you've exhausted them. You want to conquer the audiences that are outside your local. Then you start thinking like the audiences that are outside. That's how the Nigerians think. They think we have here locally. I'm a big audience. I'm a big star. I'm a big artist here. Let me try and get out and sell to Africa so that I get Nigeria on top of Africa. And somehow they have managed to achieve a lot. You go to a club in Kenya, you will not miss an hour without listening to some Nigerian music.
Yeah, but I think that what Ken is talking about is content discovery. Yes. It's not necessarily content creation. And these two things must be kept separate. If you're able to create content, the second part of this is getting the content to the market. Now, in a situation like I said earlier, if there's a very aggressive 90% local content quota, then everybody who's playing the Pan-African space has got to deal with this in Nigeria. So if you look at, for instance, if you look at Mnet, who are broadcasting across all these regions, they have been forced to deal with this 90% quota by creating more Nigerian channels, because otherwise you'll not be carried in Nigeria.
Well said, Dan. Now, Marek, Dan, as well as Ken, I'd like to hear your final views on this. And of course, there are those who are saying, Kenyan musicians are not given the same level playing ground with other, musicians from other African countries. Case in point, when a musician from Nigeria came to Kenya, I think his name is Wizkid, he got paid more than what the local artists are paid. So you all have 30 seconds each, beginning with Marek. Do you think, what are some of the challenges that Kenyan musicians have?
I believe one of the main challenges I mentioned earlier, I believe we need to incorporate a lot more local culture, because that is what really people are interested in.
Yes.
They will be, it will create the content to be a lot more organic and a lot more unique. The other part is we have to work a little bit harder. We have to start practicing a little bit more. We have to think about the whole show as an entertainment. These days it's really not enough just to be a musician. You need to be a brand. You need to be an entertainer.
Yes.
And from that perspective, you need to look at all aspects of it, from your music to your performance, to your social media, to your brand overall. And that's really what we focused on, and I believe that is the difference that we've made, is that we focused on more than just the music. We try and show you the guys are not just musicians, they are very interesting people, and we want to show you every aspect of them.
I hope the Kenyan musicians are listening. Dan, your final comments?
About the pay, you get what you negotiate for. There are no free lunches. If you want to get more money, ask for more money. That's just how this business works. Then the second thing that I would say is that for all of us working the content, we've got to diversify. Being able to just sell music in a specific space is not enough anymore. All markets everybody playing in all markets has to diversify. It's the same for musicians or anybody doing any kind of content.
Let me finish with the man from the laugh industry. Ken.
Yeah, I would just sum it up as the product that you're selling. Sometimes you don't put a price in what you're doing. I mean, you can't just come and say, I need to be paid $1 million to sing the Kenya national anthem in my language. No, you must earn that position. That's what probably the Nigerians are good at. And nowadays, the comedians at Laugh Industry have tried to enhance that. Each of them has levels, you know, depending on how the market perceives them or demand for them. This goes back to your creative levels. Have you satisfied the audience so much that they want to see you more and more and more? The more they want to see you, the more your price goes up. you know. So that means creative levels have been invested. And of course, what Marek is talking about, the business aspect of it, there's branding, there's marketing, which comes alongside the creativity. But the artists, at the end of the day, must do their level best to give quality. I like what Saudi Soul is doing, because anytime you listen to them, it is quality. Then that means you without even asking them how much you're supposed to pay for them, you just have an idea that, well, I can't pay them the same way I'll pay, let me not say names, but
that will be much better. Many thanks, Ken Wodo, for your input. Ken is from the Church and Laugh industry, as well as Dan Acedo Kothi is a musician, and Marek Fuchs, who is the MD, Sauti Soul Entertainment. Many thanks all of you for your input to this show. Now, finally, on our images of the day, a project to enhance the visitor experience at the Saqqara Necropolis in Egypt has been completed. The ancient site served as a burial ground for Egypt's pharaoh.